So, I've gotten numerous comments about people on either Reddit or YouTube asking about the NFC tag I got put in my hand. Mostly the question was, why would you do something like that? And what can you do with it? They will inject it this way in your hand so that it lies under your skin, and it's actually barely noticeable. I got it done 2 days ago. There's no pain, not really any swelling, but I still have to be careful. Let's talk about the chip a little bit. The chip itself is 2 millimeters wide and 12 millimeters long, so it's really small. The data you can store on it is about 880 bytes. It also has a 7-byte unique ID, so a unique identifier, which is really handy for some stuff. The chip itself is also fully NFC Type 2 compliant, so that means that every smartphone with an NFC chip inside of it can read these devices, and I don't think that includes iPhones because for some reason Apple does not like NFC. So maybe in the future, for now you just need a NFC reader or one app on your smartphone. So the app I'm using is called Tag Info from NXP, which is a semiconductor company that also manufactured the integrated circuit that's inside of the chip here. They did not actually make the whole chip itself, they just made the integrated circuit. So the NFC part is made by NXP, but the actual glass and casing and stuff was made by Dangerous Things, if I'm correct. So I'm gonna start scanning my tag. The important part here is the tag is very small. Smaller compared to one of the normal tags, usually this size. Therefore you must find the sweet spot of your smartphone, so the actual point where your chip is located. In this case it's about here. There we go. You can see some data here. Right now I just formatted it, so it's completely empty. This is the memory space, so you have some configuration bytes in the front, then you have all your data you want to store, 880 bytes, and then you have some configuration bytes at the end. So, how can you actually store data on this? I'm using the app called NFC Tools. I think NXP also has a tool to write the NFC tags, but this is just as good. Basically, I can do a read right now if I want, but I don't. I want to do a write. In this case, I'm gonna add a record, and for instance, I want to enter my contact details. So let me just fill those in and I'll come back. Okay, so I filled in my information. I got my first and last name, my cell phone number and my email address. This takes up 115 bytes out of the 880, so that's pretty doable. Then I'm just gonna select write, and it tells me to approach the NFC tag. So what you want to do is put it on the sweet spot again and try to hold it as steady as possible. Boom, there we go. Write complete. Now I can go back to the Tag Info app and rescan my tag. There we go. And if I go to the NDEF section, I can see record number 1 is a V-card record, and it contains my full name, telephone number, email address, and here you can see the actual data. So you might be thinking, okay, that's cool and all, I can read it on the tag info. What can you actually do with the contact details? And I will show you right now. So let's say you're at a party somewhere and you want to exchange contact details. You could give it to them, tell them, or enter it for them. But you could also ask them to scan your tag on your hand, and it'll automatically bring up a prompt to make a contact in your phone. So I'm just going to select phone. And here you can see my full name, my telephone number, which I will blur out, and my email address. What else can you store on a chip like this? Well, in this case, if we click add a record, you can add text, you can add a URL, so your social network account, video, files, but not the actual files, but just a link to the file, because remember, you can only store 880 bytes, which isn't a lot. And other stuff, you can store your Wi-Fi information there, whatever. So to summarize, this is more like a gimmick, and it's not actually very useful right now. The main things you can do with it are, for example, to store your contact details in your hand or data. There are people that store their Bitcoin private key on their hand, but it's also encrypted with a personal password, so that it's, even if somebody takes it off, it's useless. So that way there are certain Bitcoin apps where you can scan your hand and it'll get your secret key if you unlock it with your password. So that's really handy, so you can store Bitcoins on your hand. The guy that actually did my injection here, he unlocks his car with his hand now. He unlocks his store with his hand. So those are just a few examples. What I'm going to do is actually make some security things in my room. So I want to make, for instance, my door only open when I put my hand in front of it. That's a fun feature. And for the rest, I think it's just nice to have. This is it's like a next step in human evolution. So this is only the first step. Of course, you can't really store a lot of data on it, but it's a fun little gimmick to have, especially if you work as an electrical engineer and you're really interested in electronics. Why not put them in your body? So cost-wise, I paid 145 euros for the injection. The kit itself, so you can buy a kit from dangerousthings.com. The kit costs $100. It includes a syringe and everything you need to pretty much put it in your body. So the other remaining 45 euros is just to pay the guy for putting it in. He was really professional and I felt quite comfortable doing it. Healing wise, it's been in now for 2 days. All you can see is just a little red crust which is forming. Not any visible swelling. It is a bit thicker compared to my other hand, but that's also because the chip is in there. So if I can obviously feel the chip under my skin here. I have to be very careful. So 2 weeks after your injection you have to be quite careful not to do any heavy lifting, because there's a muscle here. If you put like a lot of pressure on that, you can move the chip around, and it needs about 2 weeks to settle in. After those 2 weeks you can, well, basically do what you can normally do, and this is a nice area of the hand to put it in, because you have a cushion on the bottom of your hand and on the top of your hand, so you can do quite extreme things and you won't break the glass capsule. For example, if you put your capsule here, where a lot of people would actually want it because it's handy to scan like that. Let's say you start lifting something really heavy, there's going to be like a lot of pressure on this point and it's still a glass capsule, so that'll break. Well, obviously what everybody wants to do is just have one of these in your hand and do multiple things with them. For example, pay for groceries, or exchange contact details. That is obviously very handy because you can't lose any cards in your wallet or stuff like that, and your money can't be stolen unless they actually take your hand off, but that's quite unlikely. One other great thing is we use OV chip cards for public transport here in the Netherlands. People lose them all the time and it costs them a lot of money, so it would be handy if you could just put your hand next to the scanner and have it work. But there are a few complications. For example, the OV chip card is fully encrypted. It has a private key. The chip that goes inside there is quite basic, doesn't have any encryption. It's meant to be open so anyone can put on it what they want. It's more like the very first step. So hopefully in the future.